Good beautiful morning. Today we're going to talk about narrating in a Charlotte Mason education, specifically as we use Ambleside online curriculum, but any Charlotte Mason curriculum or education, all going to use the same style of narration for the most part. Now, the advice and tips I give might not fully fall in line with the Charlotte Mason pedagogy, but they are what works for our family. Has simplified narration and made it more enjoyable. So here we go. So narration, the knowing and telling of what we have just read, is incredibly important. You can go and read about the hows and whys of it, but narration essentially allows our kids in their own words to tell us what has happened in the stories that they've just read, whether it is a book that they chose to read on their own or a scheduled read for us Ambleside users. Narration is important. And in the younger ages, like 5th grade and below, you're going to have mostly a verbal narration. And then in the older grades, you're going to have a written narration or a combination of both. So one of my top and most favorite resources is something from Simply Charlotte Mason. Now, narration can get old. Like, I've heard this from my kids, I don't want to narrate. And if you've been doing narrations for a long amount of time, you probably have heard it, but if it's a non-optional, they have to do it, but we still want them to do it with a joyful heart. So without asking our children, all right, I want you to narrate this, there are some ways that we can go about requesting this information from them. And so Simply Charlotte Mason offers a free downloadable and printable resource for us homeschooling moms. I'm going to turn the camera around so I can give you a quick little brief look at what I'm talking about. Alright, so these are printable bookmarks, which make it even more convenient because it means we have them just right on us. So some ways that we can go about this. What did I read? So this is a question they can ask themselves. And you can say, what did you read? If it's not a read aloud you're doing as a family. Tell me the story back in your own words. So tell me the story back in your own words is important. I dropped my paper because we don't want them to just say, quoting the people. We want to know what they are really absorbing, what they are learning, and how it's going for them, especially so there's, as they get older, going to be times where they're reading on their own. You're not always going to be able to pre-read things as a mom. It's almost impossible to do, at least in our home. Maybe you're got better time management than I do, so having them tell you what's going on is really important as well, to make sure that they are grasping the gist of what they're reading and they didn't just read through it. There's a difference between reading and reading. Tell me all that you remember. So that's another way to ask. What happened in order? That sequential order of how things started, the middle, the end, those are great ways for them to be able to verbally narrate or write in narration. Tell me what you understood. Now, not everything that our kids read and narrate are they going to understand, but there may be at least a part of the story that they do understand. And so that gives them an opportunity to think in a different way while they tell you what they remember. List 4 or 5 things you've learned. So again, this is all narration, but it's phrasing it in a different way to where we're not just saying, all right, tell me what you remember, or narrate for me. It's giving it a little bit more creativity. The next one is, what do you think about blank? And so if you guys are doing a read aloud as a family, you could say, what do you think about, and then you could give a character name, or what do you think about this event that happened? The next one is, why did? So if there's a moral going on or a challenge, why do you think they did this? And then they can go on and say why they think they did. Do you agree with? And again, this is really helpful with the verbal narration, but these questions can be asked in a written form as well for your children. My oldest daughter really does not like writing narration. She really hates it. But if I write on the top of her paper one of these topics, tell me why you think blank character did this, that gives her something to think about, because if I just have her write everything, she gets very overwhelmed. So it can help narrate in. Alright, here are some other ones. Explain how, describe, and then those blanks you just fill in. Tell how you might have done things differently as a character. That question alone gives a lot of opportunity for our kids to have some expressive thinking and get into their imaginations about if they were that character, what would happen. And that also is really fun. Another one is compare how we do things in today's days compared to their time. Draw a picture of what we read. That's really great for those younger ages. Make a notebook page, make a model. So if you read about something specific, like in history, they can make a model of it and they can tell you about it. That's just another way of narrating. Another one of the questions is, what questions would you ask the characters in an interview? So many creative ways, and this sheet just simplifies that process for us moms in having to think of ways to have our children narrate. All right, the next one is write a character a letter. Act out a scene from the book. That's a real fun one, especially if we're really doing Shakespeare. Draw a map. Now that works really well when you're doing things like Men of the Mississippi or Seabirds. Would you like to live during this time? Great question that's going to make them really think about what's going on. Compare what it was like then to now. Ask 5 questions about what we read, and then describe your favorite part. The very last, sorry, I got a notification. The very last one says, say 3 questions you would ask if writing a test. So those are all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful ways to ask and get your kids thinking. I will link these bookmarks in our description, but remember that sometimes it doesn't even have to be like that. Sometimes we just need to fulfill that requirement of narrating, and it can also just be as simple as, tell me about what you read today, or what did you read about today. It does not always have to be in that form, but when we get sick of the question being asked the same way and they need some variety, these are great options. And narration does not always need to be multiple sentences, or like if they're writing, pages of narration. In the early years, when you're starting like year 0, 1, 2, 3, for Ambleside or Kinder through 3rd, sometimes their narration is going to be the boy wears pants that are blue. And as they get older, their narrations will turn into more sentences, more details and descriptions, remembering the emotion of people. It is a skill that is built upon, so be encouraged in that. There are, I'm sure, many other resources. This is just one of our favorites, and it is free, which is such a blessing. In the homeschool world, finding free, wonderful resources is a help and an encouragement to us for your children's written narrations. Start out small, and Ambleside's recommendation is, I think, twice a week, depending on the grade they're in, at least for the point that we've gotten up to. And we even had to lessen it down last year to 1 time a week and verbal for the rest. Enhance your kids' strengths and their weaknesses, encourage them in them without pushing them to a point of really hating them. That's our little homeschooling vlog today, and we will see you next time.